People are going to watch this.
I'm going to introduce you to Dawn Egger, who is one of our moms. Dawn has two, Riley and Sawyer, and then she's going to talk to you about curriculum for a little while, and then I'll come back and see you again in a minute. And I'm going to move my stuff out of your way. Do you want me to move this? I'll pass it out for you so you don't have to. So you can keep talking. I'll be out of your way.
No.
Welcome again. I get to talk tonight about my favorite thing to talk about. And some of you may have, who know me, know that. Before I get started, this homeschool movement that we're a part of now on this end probably started up in about the 1980s. And at that time, the difficult thing was finding materials to use for the children. On this side of the spectrum, we definitely do not have that problem. Our problem is narrowing down and all of the abundance of homeschool curriculum, trying to find the things that fit with our family. And what I'm going to talk to you tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the different philosophies that are inside of the homeschool community. I'm just going to briefly talk about some of them. This is definitely not a complete list, but it is the major ones. And also just some of the practical things about picking curriculum and choosing what works for you. The first thing, the first philosophy or method is the traditional or the textbook. And that is a philosophy that many people like to use because it is so similar to the brick and mortar school that your children would be in. I have some on this table. We have a lot of different samples, and I tried to bring. Do you need a different?
No, I've got
anything. Okay. Any other kind of soup? I tried to divide these up kind of in the philosophy so that we have at least something for each one so that you can look at afterwards and just see, get a little idea. But I also put together this list so you can go home and either get some of these resources or go onto these websites. And I would recommend all of the providers just going. And generally, you can get a catalog for free from any of these people. So just go on their website. There'll be a place that says catalog. Click on it, put your address in, and you'll be getting. So that would be one way of getting a really good idea of the materials that they offer. So again, the traditional textbook. With that, a lot of those materials are also used in schools. Some Christian schools, some private schools use Abeka, Bob Jones, Rod and Staff, and Christian Light. These are some of the materials. Again, like I said, they are very similar to the education your child will be receiving in a public school, yet the content is going to be, in some cases, Christian, in some cases, different, and plus you're at home, so you get to do the way you want to do. But also, because they're used in schools, a lot of times they will have an abundance of practice. Because in the school system, you have to cater to children who finish quickly and children who need more practice. So as a homeschool parent, you're in control of that. You're the boss. If your child picks up quickly on a concept, you don't have to be a slave to the textbook and do all 50 problems. You are the one to gauge what your child needs. You can go through, do the even, one day, the odd. But if your child does need the practice, does need extra, you have it there, and you can do it. Another good thing about traditional is they do, because they're used in schools, they kind of hit a lot of the learning styles. because they're dealing with children that have a lot of different styles of learning. And so, whereas some materials will cater to a learning style, for instance, you can buy, there's a math program called MRHE, and it's very visual, and so it caters to that visual style. The traditional textbooks are going to kind of knock up against, several of the different learning styles. Another very popular philosophy within the homeschool community is the classical education. A classical education looks at the complete school career as 3 stages. The first stage is the grammar stage, and that's 1st grade through 4th grade. And in that stage, you have where you are pouring in facts. You're just giving that child lots of information. It's a time when you'll have lots of memorization, and they'll just be learning and learning. In the second stage is the logic stage. Now, that stage is where you're going to see a child start developing the questioning and the reasoning, and instead of just wanting to know the facts about a particular subject, they're going to want to know, well, why did this commander decide to attack in that way? So there's going to be a more investigative kind of look into, and that's when you start pulling out like primary sources and letting children see different ways that things were viewed and coming to their own understanding of what happened in history and such. It's also the time when we start seeing lots of lab work in our science, because no longer is it just memorizing all of the facts and details about science. It's exploring and investigating on their own and finding that. The last and final stage, and that was 5th through 8th grade, the last and final stage is the high school years, and those are the rhetoric years. And what you're doing then is you're taking all of this wide scope of information that they've either have poured into them or they've been investigating themselves, and you teach them how to process it. And process it both verbally through speech and debate, or they also process it through writing. So a lot of attention in the high school years in classical is spent on learning how to write essays, academic writing, and learning how to speak well and present your case, whatever persuasive arguments and such. So one of the books, and I'm just going to show this book, it's called The Well-Trained Mind, A Guide to Classical Education at Home. I have this on your sheet, but I just want to say, even if you are not interested in classical education, I highly recommend you get a hold of this book. Either, you can buy it used. It was printed in 1999, 2004. This is 2008. The main difference is that curriculum keeps being produced, and so she revises with that in mind, giving you new ideas of what you can use for each stage. But this book will tell you, when your child is this age, this is what they need to be studying, these subjects. This is how much time they need to be spending in these subjects, and here are some ideas of what you can use for those. So it's an incredible resource, however you decide. And again, you don't have to use it, it's called the Homeschool Bible, but you don't have to use it as a Bible. You don't have to say, I'm going to do exactly. Some people do, and that's great, but you can also choose what to use from it.
It's on Kindle too.
Yeah. And so, that was really the main way you would form your classical education. You would read that book and you would put your things together. But I listed Veritas Press and MRHE Press. They're 2 companies that now will put together a classical education curriculum for you that you could get, like grade 4 or whatever, put together. With Veritas Press, you get the option of what your math will be, what your science will be, and things like that. But with MRHE Press, it's here's your 7th grade. The thing about MRHE Press is they have fantastic customer service, and if you liked the look of their curriculum, but there were some things you didn't want to do, they will work with you, and you can, put in your own things for those subjects if you want to. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is Charlotte Mason. And Charlotte Mason was an educator in England, I believe in the late 1800s. I should have looked that up. But she was she was very similar in thought to Montessori. It was very much about the child, hands-on experience, letting them be inspired instead of just telling them things, just kind of inspiring inside them a desire to learn. Her philosophy is set around living books. And what that term is not textbooks, a book that's written by one individual who is passionate about whatever they wrote, so that that material transfers that passion to the child. And she was very much against anything that dumbed down. So, just quality books that children love to listen to. And so a lot of this is about listening to books, great books. She was very big on narration and copywork and nature study. Now, narration and copywork are in the traditional, they're not used as much, but they are. Classical uses narration and copywork, but Charlotte Mason focuses on it a lot more. Charlotte Mason believed that when children were small, you read to them, they immediately tell you what you read, so that you know better than a test or a question, fill in the blank would, that they understood and comprehended. And then when they're older, you read to them, they write a narration, and when they're even older, they read it themselves and write the narration and turn it into. So she also used copywork, whereas a traditional will use copywork for handwriting. Charlotte Mason uses it also for grammar. So you learn not only to write the sentence, but you learn the sentence parts that way. You learn how punctuation is used. You learn just all the pieces of grammar through copywork, on farther than a traditional education would use it. And nature study. She was very big that children should be out of doors 3 hours every day. Of course, she didn't live in Mississippi in summer. But she was a big proponent of children learning about the world around them by being in the world around them and studying plants and studying animals and things on their own like that. And so there are some resources there. That first one, Ambleside Online, is actually a free resource. It gives you the complete from, they call it 0, which I believe is kindergarten, all the way up. And they tell you the book list, the books that you will have to use each year, and they give you a schedule. Now, they don't schedule it by day, they schedule it by week. So they say, in this week you're going to read these books. So you piece it together how you want to do that. But it gives everything to you. And the great thing about it is most of the books that they use are in the public domain. So if you have a Kindle, you can find most of them for free and use them that way. And My Father's World is an actual curriculum provider that they don't totally subscribe to being Charlotte Mason, but they lean that way, and you can buy sets and boxed curriculum from them.